Then they said, no, agriculture is the mainstay of the economy. Do that or so forth. It employs a lot of people. So I looked at that. I said, well, is that true? Then I went into another document. And that other document is giving similar numbers. I didn't have those there and so forth. So I even, then I went to the Department of Agriculture Economics, talked to colleagues there and say, are these figures right that our GDP is less than 10? They couldn't believe it also. Couldn't believe it also. Yeah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, my name is Obed Lungu. I am a lecturer at the University of Zambia, where I've been teaching. My specialty is soil science. I call myself a soil scientist. So I've been teaching there since 1975. Oh. God is good, huh? I'm still looking like that or something like that, but the Lord has been gracious to me. So I'm still teaching there. I've been around, but I came back to teaching there. I've taught in South Africa. I've taught in Norway. I've taught, several other places. Some of you will remember me. I think the past, not the immediate past, the other 2 years or so forth, I was teaching soil science here. And I'm still looking for that opportunity when some timetable allows me to do that. I'm excited to do that. Okay. Now, for me, agriculture is a noble profession. Okay, and I consider it a noble profession because I think it's ordained by God Himself in the cultural mandate, where He said, tend and keep the garden. So all the things that we do to produce our food, that's it. It's a cultural mandate, actually, that we have received from God Himself. So if you take it from that point of view, then you know how to treat the land which we use to produce our food. So I was asked then to just recap on the past, present, and the future of agriculture in Zambia. And I'm fortunate that the periods that I'm going to talk about over here are actually those periods in which I was alive and big enough to be able to reflect and share with you some thoughts. Right. So the period under discussion, I'll take us through pre-political independence. This country was ruled by UK up to 1964. Then we'll talk about post-independence, and under post-independence, so forth. There are different periods in there. We had our first republic and so forth up to, I think, the 7th republic now. So those are the things that I'll take you through. So the first republic was under UNIP, United National Independence Party. And those brought us from 1964 to 1991. And then there is post-independence, again, from 1991 to 2011. So that one there was under 5 presidents, MMD, and then PF, 2011 to 2021. Now we are in the new dawn, and that's that. So through all this period here, we have had some major policy changes in addressing agriculture. So I want you to listen to that. So what I'm attempting to do, because it's a very wide subject, we can look at the policy pronouncements, the milestones in agricultural development, policy pronouncements, challenges that have been faced, the response to those challenges, and then the outcomes of the response actions And then, of course, there are reactions. It's like a cycle. You try this, it doesn't work, it gives you challenges, you go back, you retry it, and so forth. And then life goes on like that. So that's the way I will approach it. And in my speech, most of those items will come out like that. Okay, straight away then let's go to the colonial period. That's before 1964. Before 1964, there were 3 countries in one Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. So where you are living now, this was part of 3 countries. Zambia was what they called Northern Rhodesia. Then you have Zimbabwe, which was Southern Rhodesia. And then you had Malawi, which was Nyasaland. Okay? The economic activities were centralized and controlled from Salisbury, Southern Rhodesia, which is now Harare. So that's why we had the only university there. The headquarters of the railways was there. We didn't even have an air force. Everything was centralized there. Okay? So when you look at how Zambia developed compared to Zimbabwe, you have more infrastructure there than we had here. So that was the arrangement. It was a federation. Then the outpost, which is Northern Rhodesia, Zambia now, the major economic activity there was mining, copper, which is still going on today. And then, of course, it was a source of labor. Okay? Labor to go and work in that economic thing. The same way that you can move from a rural area there, here, to come to Lusaka to look for a job or to go to the copper belt. That's how it was. So the center of attraction was Zimbabwe, actually. That's how my parents went there to work, and I was born there. Okay? And then the other outpost was Nyasaland, Malawi now. The major activity there is agriculture, and as a source of labor to work in the mines and on the farms in Zimbabwe. So there was a dual land ownership. All the land was crown belonging to the British monarch, which is what we call now state land. And then, of course, there is customary land where most of our people live. The economy was private, sector-driven economy. Mining was the mainstay of the economy, contributing more than 80% of the GDP, the money that comes in, and so forth, more than 80. We haven't done well, we are still at 70. That's where agriculture thing, I think it was Mr. Chiwero was mentioning, I said there's quite a lot of potential to do it. We were 80% of GDP then, now we are still 70, which means we haven't put enough effort into agriculture. If you compare ourselves to Malawi, because they don't have any mines or so forth, they are putting more effort in agriculture. Their GDP is about 80% from agriculture. And here we are still low. I think we're still about 7%. The era, this was an era of white settler farming blocks. Okay, we had a maize belt in southern province along the line of rail. We had the Mukushi farming block, and then we had the Mpongwe. Okay, again, tracing my history, that's how it came. So my parents worked on a farm in Zimbabwe where I was born. And then when Mukushi block opened in 1959, my parents plus his white master, then we moved to Mukushi. Okay? So there are farming blocks for maize, for tobacco, ranching, and this was an era also of estates for tea. Malawi was known for tea up to today. Zomba area there, Mulanje, plenty of tea. Sugarcane, I think that one was also in a triangle in Zimbabwe. Nakambala, I think, came after independence. Then there was agricultural production was targeted to feed miners. Okay, the few commercial farmers who were doing agriculture, it was to produce grain to feed people. In the mines, in the police, in the army, and so forth. So that was the target. And it was only white settler farmers who were engaged in that kind of agriculture, and they had access to those markets. If you produce something on your little village like that or so forth, you had no access to those markets. Okay, and this is the time as well when they were, I think, for the laborers around working on farms, they were giving food rations. Okay, at the month end they would give you some meal, and then they will give you some cowpeas. If you remember on the mines there is still a name that goes on. These people, the mining police who were distributing these rations, they were called Bakanyangu. Okay, Nyangu is cowpeas. Huh? So it was meal plus cowpeas for your relish. Okay, and there was something else that we were receiving on those farms. We were receiving dried fish, long, salty fish. They called it bacalhau. It's from Mozambique. So I have that that history. Colonial era continued. There was the Federal Agricultural Research, which was established in Zimbabwe. And so that was targeted at providing seeds for those farmers there. Okay. Agricultural marketing, and then the seeds. Of course, there was one popular variety of seed. Now we have Zam seed and others and so forth. That time it was SR52, Southern Rhodesia, 1952, I think, when they made that. Okay. And what's interesting there is that maize production, when it was being done on those commercial farms, where we were staying in the compounds like that, we were not allowed to grow the crop because of cross-pollination. You would mess up with the seeds like that. So it was very highly controlled. Yeah? And then I remember also there were agricultural marketing was through grain marketing boards. If you go to Monze, you see those round things like that. I think there are 10 or 20 of them like that. Ndola had some, Kawe had some, where they were storing grain. Okay? It was also centralized transport system through the Central African Road Services. They were the only ones who were allowed to move products. Okay? It was a huge company. Central African Road Services, cars. And then Rhodesia Railways, of course, they were moving this stuff up and down. Subsistence farming on the rural customary land. That's where it was happening. You produced something, it was subsistent. At the best, you could just barter it with your neighbor, but you couldn't sell your grain from there to the grain marketing board. It was not allowed. Then government oversight, it was there on customary lands. I remember very well there were what we called land scouts. They were wearing khaki shorts and some boots and so forth. I think that's all I remember about it. But the way you had to use that land was controlled. Okay, you had to put in soil conservation measures. Not the way it's happening right now. You have men everywhere on the slope like that. People are cultivating it any way you want. Okay? Part of the problem we have right now, so forth, is that people are not managing the land well. Okay? But in that time, they were controlling it. These scouts would go around inspecting your fields to make sure if you're on a slope, you had contour ridges there. And then, of course, you were not allowed also, there were forest rangers. If you went into the forest, you found a plaque on the trees where there was access crossing like that. It meant that forest was protected. You dare not go and get firewood from there. Okay? But nowadays, of course, you know what is happening to the Malasha thing. You go to Kapiri, you know what happens. Okay. Then the next era period was political freedom in 64. Okay, and then of course, naturally, these political freedoms come without responsibilities sometimes. That's how I call it. So natural conservation laws were less enforced. They were repressive, so do away with them. So doing away with them, we did. There are no land scouts, okay, no forest rangers, and you see what has happened now in the countryside. Total devastation, free for all, huh? No control. We did away with that. It was political decision, so it is. Agriculture policy reforms were made, and that's important. In the colonial era, we had what we called mass production. Few farms, blocks, producing everything. Come independence, there were a lot of people who were not educated and so forth, so we needed to create employment. Huh? So then it went from mass production to production by the masses. Production by the masses, which means everyone in the village and so forth, you got involved and got linked up to markets. Whatever little you had access to a market to go and sell. Okay, so that was production by the masses. It was done at one time to be able to mitigate the unemployment situation. And that system is still here now. You have smallholder farmers there. Then ministerial structural changes, those as well, they were not consistent. Huh? When we started off with Kaunda, there was a Minister of Agriculture, where Elijah Mdenda was the first Minister of Agriculture. Then from there, we went to Minister of Rural Development. Agriculture was embedded in there, and I think Ruben Kamanga was one of those who went there. From there, we went to the Ministry of Agriculture and Water Development, trying to link these things up to try and find some safe way somewhere, and so forth. And then from there, we went to the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives, and so forth. They tried to organize these small-scale people to do it. So the name kept changing. Up to now, it's still changing. Now, I think they call it Minister of Agriculture. Minister of Agriculture is standalone. And then there is a Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries. So it keeps changing. Huh? Okay, and then, of course, we had state-run enterprises. Those blossomed. State-run enterprises, we had a lot of them. The Nakambalas came online. The Mununshi banana schemes came online. The Kawambwa teas came online. All those things there were done at that. You know, all this trying to get the people, the rural unemployed people, to get engaged in agriculture. Bring them on board, provide them markets, provide them training, and so forth. Okay? So smallholders, small-scale farmers, these here were boosted. There were trainings that were done. You still have today what they call farmer training centers. So they would get the farmers, train them, and then they go and practice agriculture where they are. Okay? And then we had the outgrower schemes, people growing cotton, and then they were facilitated with markets. So training was provided, markets were provided, so that they could also, these people could get engaged in agriculture and derive a livelihood from there. However, there were challenges. There were challenges, and the challenges came in the economic meltdown in the 1980s. And this one here, there was copper was in decline, the prices dropped, and if your GDP is about 80% relied on that, if the prices dropped there, it caused havoc, and that's what it did there. Second, there was unilateral declaration of independence, UDI, in now Zimbabwe. The white settlers there decided to to be independent from the Queen in UK. No, so what they did that. Now, like I said, the area, everything was centralized in Zimbabwe, right? So if these groups of people declared independence for themselves, of course, there was a blockade, okay? An economic blockade to import and export routes in Mozambique through Zimbabwe. That was the only route that was there. Where Vlad has gone, Beira, it would come to Zimbabwe, and then by rail into this. That was the only one that was open. Okay, so when these people declared the unilateral independence over there, of course they put a blockade there. And then agriculture was in decline. There were no seeds. We hadn't developed our own, or very expensive. Fertilizers very expensive. And we had no access to grain markets because everything was being controlled from the other side. Then, of course, there was national economic reforms. I can't remember the years. I think 69, 70, somewhere there. Economic reforms. There was nationalization of assets, the mines included, and then restructuring of the assets that were there. So, like transportation, where you had Central African Road Services, that was disbanded. Then you had from there contract haulage, CH, and then you had for buses, United Bus Company of Zambia, separate company. It was one company, broke it that time. Then, of course, there was a decline in farming blocks. So the Mukushi farming block, those owners who were there, the farms were on 99-year leases. They left, went to Frankfurt, went to London, went to New York, and left those, abandoned those farms there like that. Southern province, where people now have bought farms. The Mukombwes, I think the HHs as well, they were buying farms. Those were abandoned farms because of those economic reforms, people left. And then, of course, productivity in those farming blocks declined, okay? There was also a decline in the productivity of smallholder sector. I mean, they were not supported, they were just coming up, and then they got into problems. National Agricultural Marketing Board, NAMBOARD, which was buying things from small-scale farmers, giving them a livelihood, and so forth, that one went into decline as well. Of course, no, that culminated in the food riots of 1990. So what was the response to that? Okay? The response to the economic meltdown. Then, of course, the country had to develop alternative routes to the sea so they could export and import things. Then, of course, there was fuel. Fuel. Where is that? Yes. Fuel. They had to do a pipeline, the Tazama pipeline and the Ndeni oil refinery. That was done. Transport, they upgraded the Kapiri to Mbeya Road towards Dar es Salaam now. That had to be tarred. Then there's the Tazara rail link, Kapiri to Dar es Salaam. Then in agriculture, you had the nitrogen chemicals of Zambia, the one that is in Kafue, meant to produce some fertilizers. So instead of importing, we could have that. So that's how that thing came about. Food subsidies were introduced. You remember that time, I was still with the university at that time. I had to go to a ward chairman. They were very, very important to go and get a slip of paper to allow me to buy 25 kg of meal. Okay, you couldn't go to a shop like that. There was nothing there. I remember I was living on campus, and the chairman of this UNIP thing was in Munali Secondary School. Humiliating. Go to this chairman there to be given a little paper, and they couldn't write very well, even their signature there, to get that piece of paper so I could go and buy meal. Okay, salad and things like that, all those things were there. This is the time as well where there was an introduction of the fertilizer support program to support the small-scale farmers with inputs. And these inputs there were nothing much than just bags of fertilizer. At that time anyway, the economy was floundering, so they were giving them, I think, 4 bags of top-dressing fertilizer, NPK, and then 4 bags of urea or ammonium nitrate. That was to support them. So the fertilizer support program, of course, targeted only smallholder farmers, okay, because it was meant to help them get into agricultural production. Okay, so the fertilizer program, of course, comprised they were just giving them fertilizer and things like that. Now you know that already, that there's a problem. One is that fertilizer alone, you put the fertilizer alone on unimproved varieties of crops, you don't get the maximum benefit. Okay? Unimproved varieties of that, you don't get the full benefit. But that's all that the government could do. And at this point, it was supporting about 800,000 farmers. Okay, the next period is 1991 to 2021. This period here spanned 4 political administrations and 5 presidents. Those FTJ, Chiluba, Levy, Rupia Banda, SATA, and ECL. Okay, so there was a return to multi-party political system in 1991. There was the liberalization. Remember, I mentioned under that first republic, they had nationalized everything. So now it was going back, liberalized. So that was liberalized under these administrations. Farming blocks were revamped with privatization and so forth. Those people who had left, their lands were still under long lease. In this country, it's a 99-year lease, so it's still your property unless you sell it, so forth. So those people came back and they started farming again on their farms. Okay, so it was perceived as a very good idea, and then of course the new government then of course started their own. So they thought it is a very good idea to have these farming blocks. So let's start our own, in addition to Mukushi and the other thing. So that's how Nansanga on the Tazara corridor was created. There are a lot of farms there. They are not serviced a lot anyway, so that's why people are not going. So if you buy 200 hectares over there, you have to find a car here on that bad road to go and inspect your farm. So that hasn't taken up well. So that was what was happening. So ministerial structural changes, those continue. Trying to find some middle ground. How can we best address our agriculture? So there was Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Fisheries, MAF. they came through that. So that one there continued like that. Ouch. No. The challenges, I think that's where I am, yeah. Okay. Support to small-scale farmers continued. Okay, continued. The fertilizer support program to farmer was reformed from fertilizer support, providing only fertilizer, and upon the advice that we are giving from research to say, if you give just fertilizer and the seeds are not improved, there is nothing that you are doing. You are just throwing money into a drain. Okay? So then they listened and said, okay, we have then a farmer input support program. So this one here comprised giving fertilizer, NPK fertilizer, and urea, and some cereal seed, improved seed, which they were giving. And I think one thing here, that's why you play political gimmicks under counter they were receiving 88 bags. Now, by reducing from 8 to 4, you double the number of farmers. Huh? So politically, it's good. Okay, so from 800, you had 1,600,000 like that, or so forth, which would be there. I think Mrs. Mukwabe would agree with that. There was that kind of thing. So by just playing with the numbers, from 8 to 4, you increase the numbers. Now I think they're giving them 2 or even less. 1 bag and then go share in the village like that. So then they can say, no, we are supporting 2 million people, small scale farmers. There's nothing. Our fertilizer recommendations are actually, 4 bags per hectare. That's what we recommend from the soil analysis and so forth. Okay? And then the number of small, that increased. That was the time then, because of food shortages, then they created the Food Reserve Agency. Okay? And the Food Reserve Agency was made then to be a market where these smallholder farmers could sell their produce. Most of these commercial farmers up to today, they don't sell their crops to the Food Reserve Agency. It's the smallholder farmers who actually sell their crop to the Food Reserve Agency. Challenges. So farm productivity continues to decline during this period. Maize, we can compare, if we take maize on commercial farms where they are doing everything right. Mrs. Mukwabi there can agree. I think, she was in that research thing there. People can get 10 tons of maize per hectare. Easy, and year after year. Our smallholder farmers, the national average, 1.5. Okay, if not worse. Okay, and if you go around this country about January, December, or something like that, I tell my students, I say, you look into the countryside, all you see are MTN, because everything is yellow when it's supposed to be green. Okay? So this was due to costly inputs, and not enough is applied and not balanced. Okay, if you go to the FAO, people are telling us that the current average fertilizer use, NPK plus others or something like that, we have less than a kilogram of nutrients per hectare on smallholder farmers. So that's why you have MTN around. Okay? And then, of course, climate change has come into play. So those are some of the challenges. Okay? So what was the response during this period? The response there was to try and bridge the gap between 10 tons and 1 ton and so forth. That's where all these things about came in. So you had agricultural intensification using a lot of fertilizers and so forth. That program is still in place now. We say, well, let's try to intensify. Okay? Get much more from a limited area. How do you do that? The way you can do that is to increase the amount of fertilizer that you apply there. Okay? And then, of course, target increasing cereal yields of smallholder farmers to 3 tons. You can't do everything. So we are saying from research that we don't want to get 10 tons. If we can move from 1 ton to 3 tons, I think our food problems will be solved. So we are not pushing to have 10 tons. But if we can lift the people from less than 1 ton to 3 tons, we would have achieved something. So I think that's, those of you who are in agriculture, that's the target, that's the objective. Okay? And then during that time as well, that's when there was this promotion of conservation agriculture. Okay? This is what is happening now. Minimum tillage, rotations, soil cover, and so forth. All those are coming in there. So the Zambia National Farmers Union has taken that one on board. So this is what we are doing now. I think it is a government policy that if we do some agricultural production, it has to be conservation agriculture and agroforestry, growing trees on farms. Okay? And we think that if we do these practices, then we can increase and sustain the crop yields. Okay? Then we come to the new dawn. Okay? New dawn. We still continue with the same things. Okay? Private sector run economy, including agriculture. So what Chiluba started, liberalization of the economy, that continues. It's a good thing. Let people do what they are able to do. Give them ownership to resources. Okay? Ministerial restructuring has continued. Trying to reposition agriculture. Where exactly is it? Okay? So the new dawn now has separated the whole thing. You have a Minister of Agriculture on its own, and then you have a Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries. It's another. Okay? So these things have been moving around, very, very fluid. Okay? Then I think what is aimed at here is to revamp the livestock and the aquaculture sectors. You sell fish here also. I bought some the other time, very nice. Okay, so those are the things that are being done. So instead of just going to the rivers to do it, under Kaunda it was Minister of Agriculture and Water Development. I don't know where fish was. Okay, but now those are being put that. Then you have the Farmer Input Support Program. That one there, the government is saying they want to reform that, and then now call it Farmer Support Program. Just the name changing. Under Kaunda it was a Fertilizer Support Program, Farmer Input Support Program, and now it goes to Farmer Support Program. What it entails, we are still discovering exactly what it means. Okay, and then of course climate change is here, and then we need to promote climate smart agriculture, and climate smart agriculture involves those things like minimum tillage. Don't disturb the soil so much. Okay, increase soil cover. Okay, so this erosion and other things and so forth, don't take don't take place. Okay. It was a common thing especially under the First Republic and so forth. Our soils are very, very fragile. But then it was a prestige to have a tractor, and then you are plowing in about October, then you find the dust like that. I say, no, there's a farm there. No, don't do that. You destroy the soil. Okay? And then there's talk of promoting value addition to agricultural products. Okay, don't sell the thing like that. And this is where I think all of us can come in. You don't have to produce the produce yourself as a primary producer. You can buy those things there, add value to them, and sell that product. It's not like that. Like that. We are training you not to merely go and produce something, find the gumboots and what, so no. There are other things you can do. There's a value addition that you can do there. At this point, this country just sells everything. If you go to Charleston, along this Great East Road there, you see bags and bags by the side of the road. Okay? What is happening? They're taking the bran. The bran goes to South Africa. They add a few nutrients there. They have the science. They know they need zinc. They need that. They're adding to it, repackage it, label it nicely, and you find it at livestock services at the showgrounds. Double or even more than double the price. Okay, if you go to Kasumbalesa and these other borders, the Malawi border over the other side, you are selling the whole grain. You take maize just like that, the whole bag, you sell it there. And then you have to import livestock feed, which is your brand. back. You know, so there's a mess like that and so forth. So I think this one is good. I hope they mean well over it. And then, of course, we have opened the export markets. That's what the president is busy doing now. So let's open up and sell things outside and so forth. That's how you can make money. That's how you can make money, by selling those things. So in summary then, what am I saying? In summary then, what I'm saying, the contribution to agriculture, the contribution of agriculture to the GDP is still small. Mr. Chiwede mentioned over here that there's a lot of potential. And we need numbers. In science, we need numbers to be able to talk to talk about that and then support it. Okay? The contribution of agriculture to GDP is very, very small. I'll show you some figures in a moment. Okay? We also see that there is still a commitment of successive post-independence government to bringing smallholder farmers into the cash agricultural economy. So it's still going on like that. Okay, so these farmer input support programs and things like that also, those will not go away. They can make political pronouncements, but that's where the voters are. You watch what happens in an election year. We give so much fertilizer and so forth. So we are going back and forth. You can't just take a decisive decision to cut it away. You can't. Okay? So it goes on. And then restructuring agriculture to find the focus. This has eluded these successive governments. Minister of Agriculture, Food and Fisheries. Minister of Agriculture, Cooperatives. Trying to find some middle ground somewhere there. I don't know whether we have found it now, when we have Minister of Agriculture and then the other and so forth. Okay? And then, of course, there are disjointed policies, policies among sectors which are aligned to agriculture. Forestry. Okay? Forestry. People have examined some documents. People talk about, okay, let's intensify agriculture. That's on one thing. And then if you go and look at the forestry one and so forth, we are expanding into national parks, into forests. We are opening up land for that. So those are not there. Water, those policies there are not aligned to agriculture. You have these water rights and things like that, still fighting about. WAMA is coming in. What WAMA, with the water management thing, is doing and so forth, is not totally aligned to what agriculture desires and so forth. There are problems there. National parks, these conflicts there with livestock are going on. Okay, this one I wanted to show, which is what Mr. Chiwede was talking about as well. Look at that. Got this data here. The GDP. What they mean by the GDP is the total production by a sector. Okay, if you are involved in production, what you are able to sell, that's what brings money to the country, and so forth. So what's the contribution, and so forth? There are several pronouncements, policy changes during the time or something like that. Look at the GDP. Okay, the contribution of that and so forth, still less than 10, a little bit here, or 2004 it was there, it has been dropping. It has been dropping. 2020, I don't have that figure. 2019, it was only 2.7. When I saw that, I couldn't believe it. Yeah, because on the political scene, they said, no, agriculture is the mainstay of the economy. Do that or so forth. It employs a lot of people. So I looked at that. I said, well, is that true? Then I went to another document. And that other document is giving similar numbers. I didn't have those there and so forth. So I even, then I went to the Department of Agricultural Economics, talked to colleagues there and say, are these figures right, that our GDP is less than 10? They couldn't believe it also. Yeah, they couldn't believe it also. And then we, of course, we are linked to these top economists, what around, you know. Send them a little text and so forth. They say, can you confirm these numbers? I say, oh yeah, no, you know, yeah, they may be true. Because one of these sources here is coming from the World Bank. This one here was just an open source and so forth. So they are matching. They were done by two different people, so forth. So there's a lot of potential in agriculture. Part of the problem also that I found examining this data is that what we mean by agriculture, because it has been changing. So what numbers are they using to calculate the GDP? Because agriculture, depending on how it's packaged, it can be farming, which means crops and livestock. So when you change the ministry and they put into a different thing, you take livestock out, the numbers will change. If you take fish out, the number changes. So to look at these numbers realistically, then you need to look at what was defined as agriculture. Does it include fish? Does it include forestry, timber, firewood, charcoal, and things? Does it include that? So forth, you know. So those are the numbers. But anyway, that's where we are. But looking at them, whatever the definition is, and so forth, Malawi here is about 80%. Okay? And we are there. So there is a potential there. So there's work for all of us to what to do. Okay, let me conclude this way. Agriculture in Zambia, unfortunately, agriculture in Zambia is synonymous with crops. And it's a serious anomaly. People are talking about agriculture, they are talking about crops. There's no family in this country who has taken their kids to school using crops. It is livestock. Okay? It is livestock, dairy. That's what brings in money. But when we talk about agriculture, people are talking about crops. And in Zambia, we talk about agriculture, we're talking about crops, and you are talking about the political crop, maize. I think we need to dispel that that anomaly there. I want also to say that agriculture is a profession. Agriculture is a profession. Okay? You don't have to engage upon it when you retire. You don't have the energy then when you retire. So you find the teachers have retired, they say, I'm going farming. A soldier is retired, I'm going farming. And so you can't manage. You need to market, you need to work. So agriculture is a profession. You enter it and you stick with it. It's not a pastime activity that you do after you have retired, you are expired, then I'm going on agriculture. You can't. Okay? Yeah. So let's do that. And then, of course, these perennial ministerial restructurings and so forth, you know, those, they erode the gains in focus of this, of agriculture. Okay? Is agriculture with forestry? Is it with fisheries? Or with livestock? We must be decided on what it is. Okay? We must be decided on what it is. And then so we can calculate even our GDP correctly. So if you go to the World Bank and say our GDP is 2.7%, they say, what? You are not serious. And so forth. You know, so why should we give you a loan for that? But if we put everything, we sat down and decided what a definition of agriculture is, and then make those calculations of GDPs, then maybe we could be competitive. Okay? And please, let's not demonize briefcase buyers. Okay? This time of the year, they are there with their briefcases, they have money in there, they set up camp. They are buying, they are providing a valuable service. They are buying. FRA of course, is buying, is a government institution, but they give you a promissory note. I owe you, I'll pay you, just like that. Some of them, even those who delivered maize last year, crops, they have not been paid up to this point. A briefcase buyer goes there, they are now in Chongwe, Nyimba, any place like that, they are paying cash. You are helping the farmers that way. So for me, please do not demonize briefcase buyers. They are providing a useful service. There's this other thing as well, smugglers. Smugglers and so forth across the border. So that should be taken in the positive sense. Okay? If they are smugglers, they are getting your things around and so forth, which means it's an indication of a yawning market for the country's agricultural commodities. So produce more and sell more. Yeah, my village in Chipata is just about 3 kilometers from the Malawi border and so forth. I have my nieces there, producing something. I say, FRA is not buying, and I need money now for medicals and things like that. But they have stationed the Zambia National Service soldiers. They are beating us up if we take ground nuts and maize to Malawi. What are we doing? I hope that with the liberalization that the New Dawn is talking about, these things will be of the past. There are no smugglers, which means if there are smugglers, then they need your product. So what for you to do your correct response is to produce more and lay more on the market. That's my take on it. And then, of course, we need to exploit the potential and produce more for sale. That's what I'm saying already. Then finally, where? Ouch, sorry. That's the last one. The other slides, they can remain on the thing or something like that. But government support is important. Government support is important. Everything that we do in agriculture, so forth, the government needs to provide that support. Okay, in some of the governments, we have seen it. Manawasa was very close to agriculture. That's the time I was serving time at Golden Valley Agricultural Research Trust. But then you have a field day, you invite a head of state like that. No, don't mind the mud over there. The man was walking through there and so forth, to show his commitment. I don't know whether these henchmen around you had the same belief in it. Okay? But because the president is there, of course they have to be there. But then when they leave there, I don't know whether they have the same commitment. The permanent secretaries, the directors, or so forth, I don't know. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is what I thought I would tickle your minds on. Of course, there are more other technical things. I'll leave them on the stick and so forth, for people to check. But there's quite a lot. I'm a soil scientist with my passion and so forth. So there are quite a lot of other slides that are there. But let's leave it there.